time to shake the dust off and begin.
Hey everybody, welcome to Shift Your Story. It's your host, Lucy Price. Let's get started. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. I just want to start off by saying thank you so much for helping me and supporting me in beginning this process of starting a podcast with listening and with your reviews and with giving stars. It meant so much to me to look at the analytics and see how many people listened to the podcast in its first week and how many people reached out and shared how much it made them think and how valuable it was for them. And so if you listened to the podcast, if you shared the podcast, if you gave 5 stars, followed, gave a review, thank you so much for doing that, because not only does it help this podcast get off the ground, but it also allows more people to find the podcast, people who really need to hear what it is that we have to say on this podcast, to apply it to their relationships, to apply it to their lives so that they can really see the results that they want to see in their lives. And so thank you so much for all of the support you've already given to the podcast. And if you haven't given that support yet, but you are going to, thank you so much in advance. It really means a lot to me. Okay, let's officially dive into today's topic. Today's topic is the reason you are doing the things you know you shouldn't do in your relationships and how to change it. So when you're doing the things you know you shouldn't do, for example, you're snapping at a partner and you told yourself you were going to do better. You keep going back to an ex that isn't good for you, even though you say you won't. You keep getting into fights or not communicating well. When those things are happening, when you are doing the things you know that you shouldn't do, or the things that you don't want to do, because I don't want to shit on ourselves here. That's one of the things I say to my clients a lot. Don't shit on yourself. It's not the most helpful. But when you are doing the things that you don't want to be doing in your relationship and you say you're going to change, but you can't seem to change it, I can trace this back to a handful of things. The first thing I can trace it back to is fear. We're afraid of something, and so we act out in the way that we know best to try and avoid it, to try and fight it, to try and get through it, or we don't know what to do with it, and so we end up doing nothing. For example, we're afraid of being alone, and so we go back to that toxic ex. We're afraid of being wronged or being caught out for something, and so we yell louder or we get more defensive. Another reason that I can trace it back to is your thoughts and your beliefs. You'll notice that I talk a lot about mindset on this podcast, and it's for a reason. It's because our thoughts create our feelings help contribute to our actions, and our actions create our results. When we are tripping ourselves up, we can trace it back to a thought. We can trace it back to a belief that we hold. So for example, if you are snapping at your partner, getting defensive at your partner, maybe there's a thought, maybe there's a story in your mind that your partner doesn't care about you, that your partner should know better, that you shouldn't have to tell your partner certain things. Also feelings, thoughts, beliefs, and feelings. Feelings are so important to consider when we look at behavior change, because we like to think we're these logical beings, but we're not. Humans are rarely logical in my experience. So much of our decisions, so much of our choices are driven off of emotion. I feel like going to the gym today, and so I'm going to go to the gym. I don't feel like going to the gym today, so I'm going to sit at home watching Netflix with a bowl of cereal. We get reactive when we're feeling vulnerable, when we're feeling sad, when we're feeling angry. Feelings play a huge role in the decisions we make in our lives. So if you're noticing that you're doing things in your relationships that you are trying to change, or you're reacting in certain ways and you're trying to change those behaviors, also consider your feelings, because a lot of it is probably based off of your feelings, which again, then we can trace back to what you're thinking. And finally, habit. We are creatures of habit. So you might be working on trying to change certain thoughts or certain patterns within yourself, but you might have a pattern, or a habit rather, of acting a certain way and thinking certain things and doing certain things in your relationship. And so it's habit changing. It's creating new actions and creating new patterns within your brain and within your behavior, and you have to build up a new habit. And yes, some of that can take time, but more than that, I think it takes intention and really committing to the habit that you're trying to change in your relationships. So with all of that being said, with all the things that we can trace it back to, how can we actually change this? How can we actually speed up the process of not falling back into old patterns, of not just doing the things that we are used to doing and instead doing the things that we want to do, behaving the way and showing up in our relationships the way that we want to behave and the way that we want to be? I want to bring in one of the methods that I use with my clients, and it's called APA. It's a little acronym. And full transparency, I don't know if I picked this up somewhere in my studies. So if this is related back to a certain person, or if you've heard this before, please let me know, because I would love to give that person credit. I kind of have a feeling that I actually created this and made this up myself though. So with that being said, APA is an acronym that stands for Awareness, Presence, Alternative Actions. And I use it with my clients as a way to help them change certain behaviors that aren't serving them in their lives and in their relationships. So I'll go over that just one more time. If you want to grab a piece of paper, not if you're driving, you can always come back and listen to this later. But it's awareness, A, presence, P, and alternative actions, A again. Let's kick it off with awareness. Awareness is having the knowledge, the sense of the thoughts, of the patterns that you are having or you are exhibiting. Because if you don't have awareness of something, then you can't change it. So for example, if you tend to get into these really big, nasty fights with your partner, then you have awareness of that. You know that you're getting into those arguments. You know that there's reactions coming up between the two of you. It's something you know. And so it's something that because you have the awareness of it, you can start trying to work on. But if you didn't even notice you were having these fights, or you didn't even see them that way, if you didn't notice how it was affecting you and the relationship, then you wouldn't know there's something to change. You wouldn't have that awareness to lead to the next steps in this process. A way that you can build up awareness in yourself is by reflection, reflecting on your day. What felt good? What didn't? What worked for you? What didn't work out for you? Or not in the way that you wanted it to? Get curious. Ask yourself questions about how you feel, about what you like, about what you don't like. Another way is also by being open. If someone has the bravery and the vulnerability to come to you and make you aware of certain behaviors or certain thoughts that you're exhibiting, get curious about it, get introspective about it. Because sometimes, I know in my life, sometimes I could be doing something and not even know that I'm doing it. So if someone brings that to you, you have the opportunity to build that awareness and get curious and ask yourself, oh, is this true? Oh, can I look back in my life and see where this has come up, but I haven't actually realized it? So awareness is the very first step here, because you have to build the awareness of something in order to do anything with it. When you are able to build that awareness, then you are able to get into P, presence. Presence is sitting with the behavior, sitting with the thoughts, and getting underneath what is contributing to those things. What thoughts are you thinking? What are you feeling? What are your desires here? How are those thoughts and feelings leading to these behaviors? What is the want? What is the need? What is your end goal? What are you trying to achieve by thinking, feeling, and acting this way? Being present with it, being curious with it, that compassionate, curious, introspective eye is so valuable when it comes to shifting our thoughts and shifting our behavior and ultimately shifting our story. Let's go back to the example of big blow-up fights. If you can have the awareness of your behavior, and if you can be present with it, and if you can get underneath the thoughts, then you may realize that one of the things contributing to these big blowout fights is that perhaps maybe you don't bring up things that are bothering you in relationships. So you shove it down within yourself until eventually there's a straw that breaks the camel's back and it turns into this big blow up fight. Everything just explodes all at once. If you trace that back, that reaction of big blow up fight to I'm not speaking and being honest about what it is that I desire and need. And then you can trace that back again to perhaps what you're feeling and what you're thinking. So maybe you're thinking and maybe you're feeling a bit of insecurity. Maybe you're afraid of asking for what you want because in the past it didn't feel safe to do so. Maybe you're afraid of someone leaving you and so you don't ask for what it is that you want and you let things build up and simmer until eventually it all comes pouring out of you. So when you have the awareness of something and when you can be present with it, you start to be able to really trace it back to what are your behavioral patterns and what are your thought patterns in this situation that is contributing to this result, which leads us then into alternative actions, the third piece of this APA puzzle. When you are present with what is contributing to these thoughts and behaviors, you can then create a blueprint for yourself of alternative actions or steps that you can take to create and get the result that you want. So following that example that we laid out above, there's an opportunity here for some mindset work around that sense of insecurity, around those fears, around choosing and practicing different thoughts that are more supportive in getting you to the result that you want. Building up that confidence in yourself, building up that sense of self-love and self-worth, really being able to get clear about what you could be communicating in your relationship sooner, doing some of the pre-work in your relationship, a little bit of the preventative care in your relationship. Mindset is something that is within your control. It's something that you can do by yourself. You don't need someone else to do that with you. And your relationship with yourself is so key in the relationship that you eventually develop with a romantic partner or with your friends or with your family. So it creates a blueprint for you. You can go back and you can do some mindset work here. But not only that, there's also an opportunity to take different action steps within your relationship. So there's an opportunity here, for example, to have a couples meeting, to have a chat every week or every month with your partner where you are able to bring up what you want or what you need or what you desire in a relationship, where you have a contained way to bring up the things that are not working for you. If you've never done a couples check-in before, I have something on my website that would be really, really helpful for you. It's essentially the check-in that I've developed for my clients and that I do with my partner. It has a list of prompts, a list of things to check in around, a structured way to bring up your desires and to bring up what's not working for you in your relationship. Normally, this is only $5, so it's cheaper than a Starbucks coffee. It's downloadable. It has a little video tutorial that goes with it, but I'm just going to go ahead and create it as a freebie for you until March 14th. So if you want that, go ahead and snag it. But for example, you can add that into your relationship, or you can set up little check-ins at the end of the day. You can ask your partner, hey, what would be the best way for me to check in with you about things that are bothering me in our relationship? Or hey, is there a way that you would really love to learn about my thoughts and my desires? And how can I help you? How can I help make that clearer for you so that I can show you how I want to be loved, about how I want to be held? So when you get to the third A, you are able to create a blueprint for yourself of next steps that you can take to create the result that you want, whether that's in the mindset work, whether that's in the emotional intelligence, or whether that is in tools that you can adopt into your relationship to make it even better. Using this example again, you could also practice saying how you feel about things that feel relatively low risk for you, things that don't feel really heightened or important, or it's not that deep for you. So you can start practicing that skill, that next actionable step, that alternative action of advocating for yourself in a way that doesn't feel as deep, and building that muscle, building up, doing the repetitions until you feel really grounded in yourself and able to advocate for yourself in a much larger way. So again, just to recap on all of those, it's A, awareness, P, presence, and A, alternative actions. Getting aware, being present, and then creating the alternative actions that you can take instead to get you closer to the result that you desire. You don't have to sit in the way that things are. You don't have to sit in that place of, I'm trying to change, but you know what? This is just the way I am. I can't do it. I can't do it. It's just going to be that way. You don't have to sit there. Using the APA format is a fantastic place to begin to really seeing where you can make changes in your thoughts, in your feelings, and in your actions to create the result that you desire, to take different steps in your relationships, to relate to your partner in a different way, to not go back to the ex, to not slip back into those toxic relationships. So there's lots of different ways that you can use this method, but I find this to be a really helpful method, not only for me, but also for my clients, because it's an acronym you can remember, APA, and it's a muscle that you can build every day. Every day you can reflect back on your relationships, on what is working for you and not working for you. Every day you can be present with that. You can get curious about what thoughts, what feelings, and what behaviors are leading you to those results, leading you to snap, leading you to go back to someone, leading you to shove down your emotions. And every day you can think about, how can I think about this differently? How can I believe something else here that is more helpful for me? How can I be the version of myself I want to be? How can I take different actions to get to the result that I want? This is something that you can apply to every relationship and to areas of your life that aren't relationships. For example, your goals or your health. All right, everybody. That's it for this episode. Let me know what you apply the APA to in your life and how it helped you. Let me know in a review. Send me a message on Instagram. Send me an email on my website, www.shiftyourstory.net. And I'm going to be linking the couples check-in into the show notes. So if you want to get access to that before March 14th, if you want it for free, lovely, then it's going to be in the show notes in about 24 to 48 hours after this podcast release date, because I didn't know I was going to add it in. But if you are listening to this after March 14th, 2023, it's cheaper than a Starbucks cup of coffee, especially if you're getting the 2 pumps of vanilla and the soy. Okay, so it is super, super accessible for you, and it's going to transform your relationship. So it's still going to be on my website. All right, everybody. Much love to all of you. Thank you so much again for the support that you have given this podcast. I'm looking forward to seeing you again very, very soon. Take care.
So make whatever change you need to make.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If something resonated with you in today's episode, if you could leave a review, I would greatly appreciate it. It helps other people learn what we're all about here at Shift Your Story, and it helps this podcast reach listeners who may need to hear what it is that we have to say. If you would like to connect with me or work with me, you can visit my website at www.shiftyourstory.net. You can also find all of my socials on there so you can connect with me in the way that works best for you. I'll see you next time.